Hello, lovely podcast people. I hope you are well. This podcast, I think I've said this a few times recently, so apologise. I keep saying stuff like, if you're not a hardcore follower, if you're not a super fan, if you're not a whatever, this isn't for you. But they've ended up being fairly valuesome. This is not one of those. I just thought, do you know what? Life at the minute is bizarre for me. And so, but I just wanted to fill your ears with some of me. Because I know lots of, it's absolutely amazing. It's a weird and wonderful thing, social media. I heard like a TikTok or reel sound the other day that was something like, do you know why strangers will give you more support or more celebration than those who are where you're from? And it was something like, because those who are where you're from are still where they are, or something like that. And I thought, well, that's kind of profound in some ways. But also just a woman said to me on Instagram, there's nothing like the support from, or, you'll never get support like you'll get from complete strangers, or something like that, whatever. It's just bizarre, isn't it? But it's incredibly humbling that people think I'm someone special, or I'm someone who's worthy of, I don't know, just listening to in a wisdom type way, or just listening to a podcast. Like, this isn't going to be particularly funny. I'm going to give you one cool insight, right? That's going to be the one thing. Maybe I'll do that early doors so the rest of you can switch off. I probably should have done this sooner. This podcast is sponsored by Mac Nutrition Uni. Enrollments open on 13th of July. There you go. There's my little plug. Honestly, this is just a rambling podcast. I just wanted to touch base with you. I'm feeling empty and uninspired currently because my mind is just all over the place. I think because I'm thinking about too much, thinking about the world, all the rubbishy stuff that's going on in the world, and then I'm thinking about, goodness, all the stuff that's going on in my life and things I need to, lots of you. I'm going to do a podcast on the family court system. And it's crazy because no one wants to come and listen to me talk about that kind of stuff. But the engagement, the stats on my Instagram went absolutely bonkers. A bit like there's a guy called Dan Bilzerian. He makes lots of money and goes around with half-naked women and does sort of crazy stuff. And he'll post stuff up. And whenever he posts a particularly, raunchy or interesting or extravagant video, it'll be like 2 million shares of one of his stories, sort of thing. And I had one of those instances just when I posted up that I was going to be representing myself in court. But I have a very engaged audience, a very loyal following, not a huge following, but people obviously really, this is something when I talk about business mentoring stuff, I have a following that's a useful following. I'm not just someone who posts loads of half naked photos and then goes, buy my book on whatever. And people are like, I don't follow you to buy, I don't respect what you say, I just like your abs or your bum or your biceps or whatever. Obviously I think if I released a tricep training program, probably people would buy it, but it's not something I'm going to do because then I've not done anything clever. Anyway, where was I? When I posted this stuff about the family court stuff, I just had so many people reaching out to me for advice, saying that it was an inspiration to see a dad who had fought for his children and represented himself in court and won and blah, blah, blah. But it's difficult because I don't ever want to mislead people. That's my thing. But I do want to provide some inspiration or some encouragement or some words of generalized advice that I think can be transferable across any case. So I'm going to do that. I've asked today for some questions on that or whatever. But yeah, the thing I wanted to talk to you about today is it's going to be brief. And it's essentially to do with something I've said before. If you're a long-time listener, you'll have heard me say And by the way, sorry, just quickly, the reason I'm doing this is because there are so many people, if you've not switched off yet and you're thinking, geez, this is such a crappy podcast. I got another nasty YouTube comment about, you just ramble. It's like, yeah, because my podcast is a hobby. It's just a radio show. I'm just putting occasionally, read the topic title. If it's not a topic title that's specific to you, don't listen to it. And that's going to be one of these ones. This topic title is going to be like, don't listen to this podcast. I might just make it that. Don't listen to this podcast unless you're bored. Like, the only reason to listen to this podcast is if your only other option is watching trash television, because at least I'm about to give you some great wisdom from Seneca. And it's just something, right? So I'm just doing this to support the people who do steps and like listening to me like they listen to a radio show. Have me on in the background. And so I've said before that people shouldn't diet unless they are excited about the process. And I had so many cool people reach out to me and just go, geez, like, what a good statement. Why has no one said that in the last, I've been in the industry for 17 years. People who are kind of like, I've been in the industry longer than that, but I think the guy saying this to me was older than me. But it's like, why has no one ever sort of specifically worded it in such a way? And I'm sort of thinking, why have I never said that before until now? But unless you're excited, or why didn't I even apply this rule to clients? Like, if your clients, if you're self-motivating to do something and it's just, you've all known these people, friends, family, cousins, brothers, sisters, close friends, school friends. Oh, I'm on this diet. Oh, I'm just eating soup 3 times a day, and blah, blah. And it's just like, stop being that person, and don't enter in. Right now, I'm considering going on holiday this summer. And I always just like, it's cool. It's a reason for me to just do some nutritional manipulations on myself. It gives me a bit of a goal, because when you don't have any goals, it's sometimes a bit harder to motivate yourself. I'm perfectly happy and comfortable in my body. But when I'm doing stuff, it also motivates me to talk more to you about, I'm doing this. This is an interesting insight, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just not there in my head. I'm not excited by it, so I'm not going to do it. And this is one of those things. People are often bad-mouthing diets. Don't do diets. Diets fail. You eat some diets and they lose 10 pounds. And it's like, no, diets often don't fail. It's just the fact that they're done in the wrong way. And they were hating life. And then, you'll rebound all of the weight. Well, without proper education, yes, sometimes. And if you think that you lost 10 pounds of fat when you actually only lost 7 pounds of fat, 3 pounds of fat and actually 7 pounds of water, but you regained 7 pounds, felt like a failure, and then kept going and gained the 3 pounds of fat back and more, that's a terrible situation. But if you had lost 10 pounds because you rapid dieted or whatever, and then you understand about positive weight gain in the post-dieting phase, etc., it would be a different scenario. But this was just a short podcast to say hi, hope you're doing well. Didn't want to leave you a week without a podcast, and I've run out of all episodes, so everything from now I'm just going to be creating from scratch and on the fly. I've got some good stuff kind of planned in my head. There are episodes, unfortunately, where I've not allowed myself to just do it. When I've created this podcast, I thought, I'm just going to do it. Something comes into my head, just pop in and do it. But then as always, I've said this to you guys before, I guess there's only about 10 of you left listening, my super fan followers who I love and DM me after every episode. I just, my perfectionist side comes in. I'm like, do you know what? They need to know a bit more of the body of evidence on that. I want to just tell them where things are unequivocal and where things are still a bit equivocal, and things like artificial sweeteners. Lots of different areas that you can discuss with artificial sweeteners. And metabolism, I've got some stuff on that. And some stuff on nutrition for children, protein in children. That I'm going to do that one soon. Protein for children. The problem is you go protein for children, and I'm sort of talking under 10 years old, and then loads of people messaging me about like 12, between the 12 and 18 bracket. And they're like, I've got a 17 and 3-month-year-old, or 17 and 11-month-year-old, like, he's basically an adult. He weighs 90 kilos. He's playing rugby for England. Is he allowed to, a protein shake's okay? I'm like, my goodness, like, your son's flipping Goliath. Like, 100 years ago, he'd be fighting in war, drinking the blood of his enemies. You wouldn't be asking if he could have a little bit of Little Miss Muffet's curds and whey. Anyway, so it's tricky because people's like, I've got this 15-year-old elite athlete child, and is it okay if they take creatine? I'm like, go and listen to my creatine episode. Is it how much protein should they have? And it's like, well, if they're just some kid playing a bit of badminton here and there, you probably don't need to give them protein shakes. But if you've got an elite athlete kid at 15, it's a different scenario. Anyway, I'm going off on one. This is what Seneca said. I'm just going to read this little bit in the middle of a paragraph, because it just sparked off this thinking again. It's just a bit of encouragement for you. It's just a bit of a hello, whatever, and a reminder of what I've said in the past. For anyone would call it a sign of foolishness for one to undertake a task with lazy and begrudging spirit, or to push the body in one direction and the mind in another, to be torn apart by wildly divergent impulses. Seneca. It just, I don't know what year when this stuff is from or when this stuff is written, but it just holds true on that. And it's not just dieting, it's anything in life, it's work, I was giving a close friend some advice on her 16-year-old, and or trying my best to, because obviously I'm not being in that situation, but just trying to provide some emotionally removed advice. And then and it's cool talking to someone like that, because then I'm like, it makes me realize what the kind of parent I want to be, because I'm all good at giving advice, but then I think, God, if Orly comes to me and says these things at 16, will I be the great parent that I feel like, the wise man that I'm being to my friend? But it was, talking about study and this, that, and the other, and it's the same thing with regards to dieting. It's like, okay, I'm dieting, I'm doing whatever, I'm training, do you like the gym? Why are you going to the gym? This is me, again, just understanding this thing of like, I used to really, really, really love the gym. It was a great habit, but it was also something that made me feel good. Now I'm sometimes dragging myself there, but then I do feel good after it. But it's just questions of like, what is behind my begrudging? What is behind not wanting to do this? Is it just fatigue of life? And for me, I think that's a big thing. Sometimes, here's a great kind of mentality shift. I want to do an Instagram post saying something like this, but like, sometimes you can change the words in these sentences, but something like, stop saying to yourself, I remember back when I started my podcast, I kept using this word acceptance. And it's such a useful thing to try and get on board with in so many areas of life, acceptance. So rather than going, why am I so lazy? Why don't I want to go to the gym? Why am I requiring, why am I always napping? Why can't I X, Y, Z? Instead of asking yourself that into this kind of negative phrasing, instead saying, why does my body need rest right now? Why do I need to nourish myself with lots of food right now? Why do I need comfort? It's like, why do I keep eating foods that I shouldn't be eating? That, if you're asking yourself that, you've got different questions as well you need to ask in terms of morality around food and good and bad foods. But also, what is it in my life that is making me need to comfort myself with food? What is the deeper rooted issue? And therefore, those kind of things. And it's just a much more compassionate way to consider things. Why am I could do this for myself. Why am I struggling to record podcast episodes at the minute? Not why am I so lazy? Why am I so uninspired? Why am I boring? But instead going, why is it at this time that maybe I should take some time off from podcasts or whatever? But even here talking to you now, I'm like, it just feels nice. But again, in these situations, it's like, not why am I lazy? It's why does my body need this rest? But again, in terms of if you're studying, if you're an MNU student and you're struggling with studying macronutrition uni, no one's going to come along and say to us, again, even university students, this is some life advice of like, you're just going through a qualification, a university degree or whatever, and you're just, it's maybe external pressure from parents or peers or the socialization of what we should do at 16 or 18, etc. But why am I doing this? No one's going to come along and explain to you why you should. I don't know if there was a bit more in this Seneca page. I've literally just closed the book. That was, no. But just, asking yourself those questions of, why am I doing this? Could I be doing something else? Am I doing this out of, like, where is my resentment coming from? So in terms of motivation, that's another thing. Maybe you're doing, I think it was Gary Vee I heard say this. It's like, sometimes it's not that you're lazy. It's just that you lack motivation because you're not doing something that you see the purpose in. So understanding the purpose. Because doing something with a labored heart, I often think this about people doing jobs. It's just like, I think no matter what job I did, and this is maybe a personality trait, but also just do it well. Be the person that people want to turn up and do their shift with. I have members of my staff who they're just amazing. They're just smiley and happy. And just when you're around those people, it kind of, no matter what job they're doing, you just think they just have this sort of calming energy or motivational energy or just this warmth. And that's just something that we could all aspire to. So I'm just going to leave this podcast there, right? Because sometimes you just need to see those cool people, that cool film star, that football player who does this kind act, and you just think, I want people to think about me the way I think about that person right now. And you go out and you do some random act of kindness, or you see someone who's just brilliant. This is another thing. I'm really inspired by Brilliance, and I always think to myself, I'll watch stuff I've gone back on Facebook a bit more, and my Facebook feed just tends to be brilliant people doing amazing things, like the top of their game, like Kobe Bryant sort of scenarios of just his kind of work ethic, and just thinking, I want to go back to I feel like my work ethic has slipped because of stuff that's gone on in my life. And so I'm inspired by those people. I want to be a brilliant father. I want to be a brilliant boss. I want to be someone who changes the industry. I want to be someone who people go, like today, right? I film these on my phone, so I can't read them out to you, but I've had like 5 messages just from people going, because I want to do this podcast to help people through the family court thing. And it just feels so divergent from, why do people follow me? Nutrition and triceps. And occasionally, like, cute, used to be cute baby content, but they're just too old now, right? Like, they're past their sell-by date. They're not cute for social media anymore, unfortunately. No, I'm joking. But I'm like, why would I be the person putting out content on the family court stuff? But people are just like, first, some guy just said, you're a king. And then someone else said, aren't you just the most lovable, humble, nice, genuine person on social media? And I was like, well, I don't think so, but that's such a lovely, nice thing for you to say, thank you. And someone else just said, I know we're just acquaintances, and but you're truly an inspiration, and just all these such lovely, 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 lovely things that again just make me want to be a better person. It just makes me keep turning up each day and just trying to give some wisdom, spread some positivity, be real. And you know what? In future, I want to be more real in terms of, I just want to be careful. I want to be virtuous. I don't want to. I've thought many times about speaking a lot of truth on my podcast about certain people in the industry, certain aspects of, again, just in life. I've spoken about feminism before, stuff with this Roe versus Wade thing that's just come out yesterday or the day before, depending on what your views are on it. But some of the way, whichever side of the coin you're on, lots of it is just people exercising their own chips on their shoulder to just throw hate at people. throw hate at men, for instance, or throw hate at fathers, for instance. And it's just like, it's not fathers or men that are passing these laws. Again, I probably shouldn't say that because people are like, yes, it is, patriarchy, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, if you look at the data, men and women are very similar, divided and, on both sides of the divide. It's not a gender issue that this is. Anyway, it's nice to have talked to you guys. Those of you who are super followers, I hope, reach out to me. Let me know which part of this podcast you like. Let me know. I have a few people who DM me or WhatsApp me, just quotes that I've said. Normally it's just funny ones, but sometimes it's like, I'm going to use this in a presentation. Thank you very much, or whatever. I like to hear about them. Anyway, I love you lots. That's another one. I love you lots, right? Sometimes it comes across as disingenuous. And again, when I reply to so many people saying, I really appreciate that. Like, I just love positive, kind messages. You get so much hate as somebody puts themselves out there on social media. I get so much hate just from nasty stalkers who just stalk all of my social media or whatever, personal vendettas. But I saw this thing, it was like, someone was like, I love you. And then it was like, how can you love me? You don't know me. And it's like, there's people out there who choose to hate for no reason at all. So I'm going to choose to love you for no reason at all. I thought, you know what, that is a flipping good quote. Because there are people who just choose to hate someone for no apparent reason. And just to spread hate for no apparent reason. And so yeah, anyway, love you lots. Much love. And until next time, when I will hopefully bring you some more value. Cool.